What's going on, guys? Tony Sentmanat here, aka Real World Tactical, and I have a nice treat for you. I have Chris Kirkpatrick here.
What's up, guys?
He's the owner of Life 180. Okay, he is a financial strategist and real estate investor. Okay, guys, this is gonna be my entrepreneurship series. Okay, I've decided that I've had so many people talk to me about wanting to become an entrepreneur. What's the best way to go about it? What should they do? So I'm going to be bringing a ton of people with different backgrounds, different specialties on all of my channels. Mainly, I want to say the longer versions is always going to be on YouTube, and then we're going to be doing stuff. My subscription, guys, if you have my app, you will be getting exclusive content that will not be on my YouTube and will not be on Instagram. So just letting you know, go ahead and subscribe there. It will be on the description. And we're going to get now to my boy, Chris Kirkpatrick.
Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Chris. I'm the owner and founder of Life 180. Basically, Life 180 is a financial strategy company. I run a YouTube channel. I have an Instagram channel. Bigger on YouTube, spend more time there. My main focus is to help entrepreneurs align their money with their values and beliefs, because when we look at the typical strategies that are taught with personal finance in the world, it's designed for your rank and file W-2 employee. It's not designed for people that have that entrepreneurial spirit. It's not designed for people who want to go invest in real estate. And so the big thing that I love to do is teach people how to invest for cash flow, how to align their money so they can actually accomplish what they want to accomplish now, because and still know that their future is going to be solidified, right? Because think about it, like when you're an entrepreneur, when you're a real estate investor, a lot of times you're kind of like torn. You're like, okay, what do I do? Do I save for the future, or do I put money into my business, right? And it's this real
there's always that battle, and whether you want to save money or do you want to put all the money that you have saved up into the next business that you have.
100%. And so with Life 180, my focus, Life 180 is an acronym. It's living intentionally for excellence. And so the idea is we have to be more intentional with our money. I'm a big believer that financial structure is more important than going out and chasing big rates of return, because at the end of the day, and I'm sure we'll get into all this, like no matter what direction you decide to go with your financial strategy, with your money, with whatever, you have to either put sweat equity into it, or you have to take time and save, right? You can either save to get to where you want to go, or you can invest in yourself and take sweat equity and the time and maybe go do other things and trade that time for money. We meet different people in different parts of their journey, and
so what would you say is your specialty, for example? Because I know that you have the Life 180 deals with IRAs. You have I know you have a certain amount of employees around the country.
Yeah. So what we do, I would say our specialty is teaching people how to save money to invest money. Okay. The biggest challenge that I think exists in the personal finance world is that people are just separated from their money, right? You put money in qualified accounts like 401ks, and you put money there, and as soon as you do, that money is locked up. You're deferring taxes, and that feels really good. People think they get a tax deduction, but you're not really getting a tax deduction. You're getting a tax deferral. And so, well, let me ask you this. This is why I always say, like, I help people align their money with their values and beliefs. So if I were to ask you a question about what you believe, like, how much do you trust the government right now?
Like not at all.
Not at all, right? So do you think taxes are going down or up?
Taxes are going up for sure.
Up, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So do you think the government debt's going to get worse or better?
Definitely worse.
Right? So I could keep this conversation going, right? Ask you all these questions. And so most people that I deal with, right, would agree with everything that you're saying. And they would be like, dude, this country is screwed, right?
Yeah. We're definitely, in regards to that matter, we're definitely right now in a really rough time.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so what people don't realize is when you put money in an IRA, individual retirement account, or a 401k, or a 403b, or 457, any of these qualified accounts, a qualified account is simply saying you're putting money into an account and you're deferring taxes. You get a tax deduction this year, so that seems really sexy. It seems really attractive. So if you earn $100,000 and then you take 10,000, you invest 10% of your money, and you take 10,000. Well, it reduces your taxable income from 100 down to 90,000, right? So the idea is, oh, well, if I get a $10,000 tax deduction, well, that's really great because it reduces my tax liability. It's nothing, but what happens is you're not even getting the deduction. To make it worse, all you're doing is getting a deferral, because when you put that $10,000 in an account, it doesn't mean you get.
Once you take it out, they're going to tax you.
They're going to tax you. 100%. And so if you just told me you think taxes are going up, so why defer taxes today?
And you're going to pay more
to pay more later,
a week later.
You know what I'm saying?
Or a couple years later.
Yeah. And now if like for yourself, you're an entrepreneur, right? You're a real estate investor. You got a lot of things going on, right? And so when you look at it like that, and let's say you put a bunch of money in there, and now you're like, well, crap, now I found this opportunity. I found this business. I want to expand my business. I want to invest in real estate. I want to do all these things. Now, if you want to get your money that you put into that account, they're going to
tax you more money than you would have a year ago.
And you're going to have to pay a 10% penalty.
And a 10%
on top of it if you're earlier than 59 and a half years old, right? So, like, that's why when I say I align people with their money, with their values and beliefs, that's what I'm talking about. And so it's not that I don't believe there's one right way to do anything, right?
There's an old saying that I always and this happens in every skill-based industry, right? Regardless of what industry you're in or what you're trying to accomplish. So me and you have the same result, right? If I'm trying to do something and you're trying to do something, and we get the same result every single time.
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to have my method and you're going to have your method.
Sure.
Doesn't really matter what method we use, right? So there's old saying, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. Mm-hmm. Same exact concept. I'm going to have my way of doing something that's going to give the same exact result as your way that does it. And as long as my way works for me, okay, good to go. Yeah. As long as your way works for you, okay, good to go. We're still getting the same result.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For me, let's say I feel my way is more efficient. For you may feel, no, my way is more efficient.
And that comes down to skill sets. It comes down to
experience.
Your experience.
Of course.
It comes down to a lot of different variables,
all that
right?
Stuff, yeah.
It's all about, at the end of the day, it's about execution, right? Like I play golf, right? And it's about the swing. It doesn't matter what you look like. If you go watch a PGA Tour, they all have different swings. But at the end of the day, all that matters is, do you get straight through the ball?
100%.
You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter. And that's really what it comes down to. Real estate, not all real estate is created equally. People say I'm a real estate investor. Well, what kind of real estate investor, right? Do you do multifamily? Do you do single family,
residential, hotels, commercial,
lease options? Do you do what? Are you running a syndication? Are you running a fund? Are you like all these different opportunities that are out there? So I think it's just a matter, once again, and they're all different. They all have different risk spectrums.
Yeah, you have to go in. You're going to go in there and you're going to be like, all right, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
There is no cookie cutter program. Right. So, you're going to have a template. You have the basic foundation, your basic template.
Right.
But once you start throwing different, little wrenches in there, it's going to end up changing little by little.
Yeah.
And totally. I think that pertains to everything in the world, right? Because every single person is different. Every single dream is different. Every single thing you want to do in this life may be a little bit different than what I want to do. Right. So, as a real estate investor, okay, you may want to, dedicate more time into hotels. I may want to dedicate more time into residential Airbnb.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So at that point, you're going to have to say, okay, well, what's going to be the best route for me to take to go the hotel route or to go the residential Airbnb route, right?
Totally. And as you go, that will change, right? My wife and I did flips. We've done single family. We've done all these things. And now we're doing an international hotel and retreat center, right? Like completely different. Like if you told me 3 years ago that, hey, Chris, did you know 3 years from now you're going to be moving your family to the Dominican Republic to live on the ocean, to run and build and develop this retreat center? I would have told you are freaking insane.
Yeah,
I don't speak Spanish. I've never been to the Dominican Republic. Why the hell would I buy a hotel and retreat center there? But opportunity, the more you develop, the more you evolve, the more you build your network, and the more you build your skill sets and knowledge, the more opportunity seems to have a way of tracking you down.
100%.
And that's the goal of this, right? Like you started your journey back a decade ago or more, in the social media space and building your brand and like having the influence. And as you have grown, so too has your brand. So too, like, and it's not just like, oh, you have ideas that you want to do or things get stale. It's the fact that you have grown as an individual. You have gotten more skilled. You have built a network. You have done a lot of things. And that's the way it is for everybody, right? And
so what would you say, because I know you do life insurance policies.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. What would you say is the best route for a regular person who wants to get a life insurance policy? What is it going to help them, and how can it help them in the future for their businesses?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. So here's what I would say to that is
let's keep it. There's 3 S's in life. 3 S's. I live by these 3 S's. Okay. Simple, safe, and stupid.
Simple, safe. Keep it simple, safe, and stupid.
Right.
All right.
So you keep it simple. All right, you always got to keep things simple. When you complicate things, you're gonna it becomes a clusterfuck, right?
All right, so
safe, right?
I love it.
It's got to be safe, meaning if you have too much risk, you end up dying. You end up falling over the cliff.
I love it,
right? So you got to find that middle. And then stupid, I want you to explain this
like
to me.
Like a 10-year-old.
Explain it to me like there's a room with 50 people, and I'm the stupidest motherfucker in the room.
Okay.
And you need to make me understand what it means.
All right, let's do it. So, first of all, I'll say this. This is one of the reasons that, once again, I always say we align our money with our values and beliefs. Right?
Okay.
And so this is why it's important to me. Once again, I don't think there's one way to do anything. So for me, this is why I love what I do. I look at situations and I say, before I make any decision, my Dominican Republic project, any real estate investment, any business, anything I do, I look at what's the upside, because we need to be chasing upside.
Of course.
Right? What's the downside?
Worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario, can I live with the downside? Right? To me, whether you're looking at an investment, a business opportunity, any kind of collaboration, we have to look at it through that lens. What's the upside? What's the downside? Can I live with the downside? If the answer is you can't live with the downside, the answer is don't.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Right?
So that's going to bankrupt you or it's going to destroy you. Don't do it.
Right. That's the safe component, right? So that's it. Simple. I guess let's go this way. So this is one of the things that I always ask people. I said before, I focus on financial structure. I focus on the way that we operate with our money, right? Because the biggest thing that I see is that the biggest problem and the biggest lie in personal finance is the younger you are, the more risk you can take. Now,
the older you are, the less risk you take, obviously.
Well,
because your consequences are going to lead you to catastrophic.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so the idea,
you don't have that recovery time anymore.
Well, so it's tricky, right? Because and that's the way people think, and there's truth in it. So it's kind of there's a weird dichotomy to it, because if, for instance, the younger you are, the more risk you can take. If you're 25 and you're going and investing in speculative assets or a business or some sort of like a crypto token or coin, or like that's like one of those like totally speculative like things.
There's no research behind it.
Yeah,
there's no foundation. There's nothing.
Sure, the upside could be like through the moon.
Yeah,
right.
Crazy.
But the downside is catastrophic for a lot of people, right? And that happened to a lot of people. A lot of people got burned. A lot of people got hurt. And the challenge is not is it good or bad? Is that, are you ready to take the risk? What's the upside? What's the downside? Can you live with that downside? At 25 years old, the idea of the more risk, the younger you are, the more risk you can take exists, because if I lose everything, I'm 25, I can rebuild it.
You try to
right? But here's the deal: the younger you are, the less risk you have to take, because the deal is the greatest. We all want to be earning compound interest, right? We all want to be able to be good investors, but the problem is when you don't have a safe foundation, like of money, and you haven't saved enough money to actually go invest and take that risk, you're not really an investor, you're just a speculator. And speculators have these boom bust cycles that go crazy. And I've done this. I've researched, the Rockefellers. I've researched Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, like all these people. They're amazing at what they do. But the thing is that they weren't huge risk takers. When they took risks, they took risk in themselves. And that's great. Warren Buffett invests in companies, and he does that. But he didn't ever put too much of his money into any one company. What I'm seeing today is young people in their 20s and early 30s putting
all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah, just putting it all on black, right? But what we need to be doing, and so coming back to keeping it simple, what I ask people is like, do you believe that every American should have an emergency fund? Right? Most people say yes, because saying no to that question means I don't want to be a responsible adult.
Yeah,
right?
obviously.
Like, everybody.
You gotta have some money.
You gotta have something.
You don't have to have a shit ton of money.
Sure.
But you have to have something there
Right.
to like, hey, if something does happen, I have it.
Right. So it's, once again, not good or bad. It's what do you believe, right? What's important to you, and it's different for everybody. If you are a nurse or a teacher and you have super amazing job stability, your need for an emergency fund may not be as much. When you're an entrepreneur like me, and you're doing all these
And you're
things
hustling
and
every
all
day.
over the place, I like to have a year liquid capital dry just in case I need it.
Yeah.
Because you never want to run into a situation. Because I'm not just thinking about emergency. I'm thinking about, when do people make money? They make money in times of hardship, right? So that's when more wealth is created. If you look at the beginning of the pandemic, more people created more wealth. If you look in 2008, more wealth was created. A lot more wealth was, more people were hurt.
Yeah, I mean, because, well, this is the thing. If you invested in anything web,
Yeah.
anything computer-based, gaming, Amazon, and you were doing the Amazon stores, you're doing whatever it is that you were selling products online, then you fucking destroyed it.
Yeah.
Because nobody could be outside.
Yeah.
But if you had a brick and mortar, and you had a restaurant, or you had something where someone had to drive to you to make a purchase, then you saw a catastrophic, you know what I mean? It destroyed you. So, and I learned that a lot from this company that I work with. The guys know First Form. I think they quadrupled their sales during the pandemic, because they're 90% of their stuff is internet based.
Yeah.
So if you were internet based, you won. If you were brick and mortar based, you lost.
You got smoked.
Yeah, and,
there's no doubt.
know-
But my philosophy is that there's always these cycles, right? The market is cyclical. A lot of people are sold the whole personal finance game of just go to school, get a job, invest in a 401k, buy and hold your investments. If you just hold long enough, the market will average out to about 8%. But the reality is that's not the way the money and the markets really work. The market is cyclical. It's not linear. It doesn't just go up in this nice curve.
I can tell you this: when I bought my first property in the mid 2000s, right before the crash that happened here in Florida, because of all the fraudulent loans that the loan guys were giving out. And when I bought my property, one of my investment properties, I bought it at $179,000, and within like 2 or 3 months, it was worth $250, $260.
I love it.
Right? It was great.
Yeah,
it was awesome. Great job. Then everything crashed. And then my property went from $250, $260 to like $70,000, $80,000.
All of a sudden, you're upside down big time, right?
And this is the problem.
Yeah, totally.
You're upside down, and there's no coming back. So I had to wait 15 years. For the market to catch back up on my property. So that now it's back up to, you know what I'm saying, 250, 300,000.
You cash flowed it the whole time.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
So, amazing.
But but I rented it out. But then I also had headaches, right? So I rented it out to this old lady. Felt bad for her. She ended up losing her job. She had a kid, and the kid had a kid. And, I ended up having to eat the mortgage on that property like for 5 or 6 months straight, because she couldn't pay it, and I didn't have the heart to kick her out. And until the end of it, she just stopped answering my phone calls, and then I had to take the 3 or 4 months, get a lawyer and evict her. And I evicted her at the end, and then guess what? Then you got to fix the property. So you had to spend another 5 or 10 grand fixing the property to get someone else in there to start renting it out.
That's why I'll never manage my own properties.
So that's it.
Totally.
But I mean, at the end of the day, even if you get a company to manage it for you, that doesn't take away the headache.
Yes and no. I mean, honestly, we've got it systematized in a way that is, and we only invest in areas that you'd be able to get your tenant out within 30 days. And so when they're 14 days late, and that's why, because I'm like you, like if I had some, old lady in my house or whatever that I don't think I could get
the company goes in and just cuts her head.
Like, so
they don't care. It's not
so
personal.
for me, it's business. We've got a property management company. They handle everything.
They take a percentage.
10%.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's peace of mind, bro.
Yeah.
And
guys, I want you guys to hear all of this stuff because it's important, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't talk about this type of the bad.
Right.
You're gonna see
totally.
100 videos of all these gurus and all these people talking like all this great stuff. You know, how you're making millions of dollars because they have 20 something properties, they have this and that, or they have multiplexes and have all these different things. But they never talk about the bad stuff. What happens? The tenant that doesn't want to pay. The how they put. I mean, I was a cop for many years, and I went to houses where tenants didn't want to leave. And then when it was time for them to leave, or they got evicted, they put concrete in the toilets.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean?
That's
They
like
destroyed the walls. So it went from just taking somebody out, doing a little bit of rehab, couple $1,000s, to $30,000 to $40,000 worth of rehab.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then the company comes in, and what is the company going to tell you? That company that's doing all their stuff, hey, your house is jacked up. You know, it's like you got to fix it before we can you know, and you got to come out of pocket regardless of how you look at it. You know.
Well, so yeah, and listen, mistakes in real estate are like debilitating and they're devastating because like if you make a bad investment in a stock, the worst that happens is you lose some money. You lose your money. You put 10 grand into an investment, or put 100 grand into an investment, and that maybe that investment goes down to 50 grand or something like that. So you lost 50 grand. In real estate, you put it in. You have to have a buffer. You have to have capital to make sure that should something go poorly, you can put money back into that property, right? Like you may have to fix some things. So liquidity is important. And so coming back to the insurance question that you had, I'm a big fan of the fact that the financial efficiency is super important, right? And what I mean by financial efficiency is we have to get each dollar that we have performing multiple functions, right? Because most of the time in personal finance, we're thinking, all right, how do I save money in an emergency fund? How do I start saving for my first real estate investment? How do I save for my first business? How do I start investing for my future? How do I have a family, I need life insurance. I need to think about, okay, I'm going to get old and unhealthy at some point in time. I might need long-term care. What about disability insurance? What about like all these things that just come up in life, right? Like what happens if I get sick? What happens if I get cancer? I'm somebody that wants to have control of my own medical directive. I will not do chemo and radiation and all that stuff the way that traditional, doctors would have me do. And so, but at the end of the day, that's what traditional health insurance companies are going to do. They're going to make you follow that route. They're going to be like, all right,
of course,
you got cancer. You're doing chemo and radiation. Boom, boom, boom. That's your only path.
And otherwise, it's going to cost you $250,000.
Otherwise, you're dead. And if you want to do alternative treatments, which by the way, just a little story, my father-in-law, November 4th, 2020, was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He went into he was playing pickleball. He twisted his ankle. Went to the ER just to get his ankle checked out. They did a scan. They turned out that he had a blood clot. It wasn't a twisted ankle. Had a blood clot that ran from his ankle to his groin. When they scanned the blood clot in his groin, they found a mass on his pancreas. And it was a 7-centimeter tumor that spread from his pancreas to his liver.
Oh, wow.
And it had already metastasized, and the doctors gave him 90 days to live. We went to the oncologist. The oncologist said, we may be able to get you to 6 months to a year, but your quality of life is going to be crap.
It's going to be shit.
And so he basically, in the hospital room, was like, no, this is it. Like, let me start getting my affairs in order. It's going to be what it's going to be. Yeah. My wife and I were like, screw that. Like, it's not who we are. We don't go down without a fight. Because we had access to capital. One of the things that you can do with a life insurance policy is you can accelerate the death benefit to utilize for medical treatment. Most people don't realize that. And so we have policies that I have dedicated just for like an emergency medical plan. So I can control my medical directive, right? And it's way cheaper than a high deductible medical plan, And this
is through life insurance.
This is through life insurance, exactly. So most people, I always say it's called life insurance because you're supposed to use it while you're alive. It's not just death insurance, Yeah. And the thing is that, I'll tell you this, if you know anything about pancreatic cancer, it is the killer of killers of cancer. Yeah. My father-in-law, at 76 years old when he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, is still alive today, almost 3 years later, playing golf 4 days a week, hanging out with his grandkids, doing all that stuff, because we were able to do alternative treatments. And even to this day, his oncologist is like, how the hell am I seeing you every single month on your checkups? Yeah. Like, it makes no sense to anybody. But because we approach things from a different perspective and we had finances set up differently, he was able to have control and handle his medical treatment differently. So when I talk about financial efficiency, I'm talking about you have to think long term. we have to be thinking long term. And so life insurance is an amazing savings alternative. I think the bad rap that life insurance gets is people compare it to an investment. If you look at a life insurance return long term and you look at the investment side of it, you're going to be like, that's pathetic, right? But if you look at a life insurance policy and you say, what is the role of this money? It's safe, liquid, guaranteed, accessible capital that's going to give me additional benefits. And you think, all right, do I need an emergency fund? Sure. Do I want to have dry powder in case of an opportunity that I can find, that I want to deploy, that I can leverage safely with no risk? I'd love that, right? Like, to entrepreneurs and real estate investors, that concept is gold. To people that are not that, it makes no sense. You're like, why would I want that? Like, it's more dangerous than it is positive, right?
Yeah.
But if that's your skill set and you are looking for opportunities, you need to align your money with your values and beliefs and your skills, right? And so that's where life insurance comes in, right? And that it's not for your W-2 employee. It can be for an emergency fund, but like for people that are entrepreneurial and real estate investment mindseted, it's like, for me, we flow like pretty much everything through there. Like this project that we're doing in the Dominican right now, that would have never happened had we not had access to capital through a life insurance policy. Period. Yeah. Right?
And how many reps you has? I know you have a certain amount.
Yeah.
Of reps
So man, we started our agency in January 2022, and we're up to over 400 agents now across the country.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's growing a lot. We got just over 400 in 48 states now. Like it's expanding a lot. We got 5 to 10 people joining us every single week now, and it's growing because like it's the fact is people know now. Well, let me put it this way. 7 years ago, the idea of safe money wasn't as appealing, right? Because the market was going crazy, crypto craze was going on, and like it was nuts, right? But right now, people are kind of looking around like, holy shit, what's next year going to look like? There's so much uncertainty, and what life insurance does when you use it as a savings alternative is it solves a lot of different problems for you in your life, and it solves a lot of needs and wants that people have, and it provides certainty in an uncertain world, and that's what these companies do.
Awesome, that's great. And so talk to us a little bit about what you got going on in Dominican Republic. I know you have a retreat center there.
Yeah.
Where exactly in the DR is it?
Yeah, it's in Samaná. So in the Samaná Peninsula. If you look at the north side of the island or in the country of the Dominican Republic, because Haiti's on the other side of it, right? But if you look at the island, on the northeast side of the island, there's a peninsula called Samaná. And if you look at the top side of the peninsula, it looks like a bit of an alligator. The end of the island looks like an alligator head. So at the base of the alligator's neck, there's this little bay that's like 1.5 kilometers long. And we're right in that little valley, and it's just like this magical place on earth that we found. I found it through relationships. I always kind of tell people the more you save, the more liquid, accessible capital you have, the more opportunity seems to have a way of tracking you down.
Well, that's one. I can say this, from personal experience and being an entrepreneur now for over a decade. Mm-hmm. That even though there are a lot of people that say no, you don't have liquid cash, you should be investing everything you have and all that stuff. You have to have some kind of liquidity, because when that opportunity does come, you have to have that cash on hand to be able to do it, right? Because at the end of the day, either you have the cash on hand or you have to get a loan to have that, you know what I mean, the capital, right? So you have to get that loan. And being a real estate investor myself and owning things not only in this country but other countries as well, you do come to realize it's like, okay, either I have to use my own cash or I gotta get a loan to right? And I've learned, and I think everybody knows, one of the basic rules is whenever you're investing, never use your own money.
Right. Yeah.
You always try to use someone else's money.
Sure. Totally.
So that, I think that's a foundational rule that everybody should always follow, right? Whatever you have, you always have it there for that emergency fund. Totally. And you have it there, and then you can borrow against it or borrow something to that and have a collateral for it, But at least you're not using that money if you do need to pull it for whatever reason in case something does happen. Yeah. It's there.
Well, I mean, you just hit the nail on the head. Like, so I've been doing this for 15 years now, since 2009, so almost 15 years. And, what I can say is that my journey has been pretty crazy, but I've grown a lot, right? We've had a lot of experiences. We've had a lot of wins. We've had some losses. You learn more in the losses than you do the wins, obviously. And those losses, as painful as they are, they forge who you are. And because of those losses, it's created opportunity because of what we've learned in those losses, and how we've grown and how we've been still diligent about forging forward and just moving forward and growing. And what happened for me, and this is kind of how the Dominican project happened, I never thought I was going to be an international real estate investor. Like, I wasn't looking to be, in fact. The problem is, or I guess the blessing is, I was looking for opportunities in the United States, and I couldn't find anything that I liked because the market's bubbled up. The mortgage rates are crazy.
Real estate here is
nothing makes any sense, right? And so
I was be in the game already,
right?
Because now getting properties now with the interest rates at 8% and the properties, the inflation, the properties are through the roof on top of their 8% interest rates. Yeah.
And so I was looking to deploy money here, but then it was just like there was nothing. And so then somebody brought it to my attention. Like, hey, would you be interested in the Dominican? I was like, I'm always open to looking at anything. Yeah. And so then as we vetted it out.
That's when we started talking.
Right. Yeah. And so as I was vetting it out, you start to realize, and I went down and checked it out. My wife and I invested in some properties down there just personally. Mm-hmm. And as we kept going back and forth, as I kept talking to people, this is where over the 15 years of growth, and through all the things that I've learned, it just came to our attention, and through some coaching and through some guidance of other people, they were like, Chris, you need to launch a private equity fund, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I didn't even know where to start. But because of the growth that I'd had and the network that I'd built, right? I had people there that were able to coach me and guide me on, and I had all the legal backing and all the things that I needed to launch a private equity fund, which, by the way, is a pain in the butt, right? But we've got it done, and now that's what we're leveraging and utilizing to actually have international investment opportunity with the protection of the United States regulation, right? Because that's the challenge. The first time my wife and I sent money down to the Dominican, I remember sending 6 figures. When you write a check or you wire a check, down to a foreign country.
And it goes missing for a week.
And it goes missing. Oof, try 40 days, bro. 40 days it got held up.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. That makes you pucker 40 a little
days
bit.
So usually when you wire an international wire, right? The way that it usually works is you have to have an accountant on that end. You have to have someone who knows how to get the approval first.
Yeah.
Because all those countries are notorious for money laundering. Yeah. So what happens is, let's say you have your business set up. For example, in Colombia, you have like a SAS. It's kind of like an LLC over here, right? You have that set up. So you have your lawyer, and then you have your accountant has to go into the bank and has to filled out a certain amount of documentation for an approval so that you can send this money and wire this money from the United States to that country, right? That approval is pretty much telling the country, okay, I'm sending money from the United States from this business to this business, and it's for this venture, right? So, like, for example, if you're sending $50,000 or let's say 6 figures, right, 100 grand, you have to show some kind of proof that 100 grand is going to go towards the property that you're buying or whatever it may be. Yep. So once they get the approval, you send the money. Once you send the money, and this is another big thing too, what a lot of people don't realize, and I learned over the years, where when you send the money, you either send it in dollars or you send it in that currency that the country. What I learned was that first you have to have the accountant go in. He gets the approval. You wire the funds. When you wire the funds, there's 2 ways to do it. You either wire the funds in that currency or you wire the funds in dollars. Now, if you wire the funds in that currency, okay, depending on how the dollar is when you wire the funds.
That's tough, man.
Yeah.
Totally.
So understand this, right? So let's just say you have the Dominican currency.
Yeah.
Okay. For every dollar, it's a certain amount of, it's 1,000 something Dominican currency. Same thing with Colombia, right? So you have Colombian pesos. So the national currency would be, let's just say right now it's at 4,000 Colombian pesos to every $1.
Yeah.
So if I send it in Colombian pesos, they're going to take and change it the moment that I get that money and let's say wire it.
Yep.
So let's just say it takes about a week to get there.
Yep.
Right? Well, those currencies are very volatile.
Hugely.
So they go up and down all the time.
Yeah.
So what happens is that when it gets there, okay, you decided that you wanted to take that currency or change the rate of the dollar when you did the wire. But when it lands in that country, and you have to have your accountant go back in,
Yep.
okay, he's got to go back to the bank,
Yep.
check it. Okay, we found the money. Now, because it's almost like it's in limbo for
My gosh.
for like a week. So when they find the money, then they're like, okay, we found it, and this is how much you decided when you sent that money that the currency was. But guess what? The currency is no longer at that anymore. The currency now, the dollar, has more value than when you sent it, because obviously it goes up and down.
Yeah.
So you just lost.
Yeah.
You lost. Let's just say if it's 4,000 and it went up to 4,800, you just lost $5,000 or $6,000. You just lost $7,000 or $8,000.
Yeah,
or more.
It could
right?
It could be crazy.
It's nuts. So what you have to do, and I learned this, right, is you send it in dollar, right, from here to there. When it gets there, and they approve it, and your accountant goes in, he clears the money, then there they change it that day from whatever that currency is, from the dollar to whatever. That's a little secret.
Little hack.
Little hack that I lost like 10 racks in. So.
Yeah. So and because what happened, and it could go the other way. It could
can
go the other way.
It could
you
go
could
the other
win.
way too. So it could go. Yeah, it could go to where, okay, now I sent it in dollars over there, but when I sent it, the dollar was at 48.
But you're not doing this project down there to do Forex trading, right? Like you're sending that money down for real estate. You don't need to inject Forex risk into the equation, right? Like that's the idea.
It's one of these things.
Right.
These things, because what happens is if you don't know, right?
That's
what happened to me.
Yeah.
The money comes on the other end, and when it gets into the bank, you look at the bank and you're like, well, but I sent 50 racks,
like,
50,000, and now I have only 43,000.
Yeah, it sucks.
So you're like,
that's brutal.
Because you're going to because when you look at that money, you're not looking at it anymore at the dollars anymore. You're looking at the value of what that country's currency is.
Yep.
Okay.
And it fluctuates.
A ton.
So
when you say, okay, now it's, let's say, $100,000 would be 200 million Colombian pesos, right?
Yeah.
So at the 200 million Colombian pesos, when I sent it was 50, but now 200 million Colombian pesos is only worth 43,000.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that you find.
Well, that happened to me. Like I didn't have any money in limbo, but I was just, I'm always going in and out of the Dominican Republic, for this project. Yeah. And I was there for 4 days this last trip. I got to Miami last night. So I was there for 4 days over the weekend. And the Dominican Republic peso went from 54 per dollar to 59 per dollar in 4 days.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
That's like a 10%.
Yeah, that's huge. Like that's huge. That's huge.
That's a swing, bro.
That's huge. That's huge. That's huge.
So
from that's big. Usually it varies.
Yeah,
1,000 to 3,000.
That was one of the biggest swings that I've seen in the year and 15 months that I've been going down there. And so that kind of stuff is important to understand. But like my belief overall though is like I love the international thing. I know you do too. Yeah. We've looked at Colombia as well. We've spent a lot of time in Colombia this year. You have as well. We settled on the Dominican because that's just where our relationships came up. That's where the opportunity presented itself. I've got a local contact there that basically is like the godfather of the area. Yeah. He runs the area.
This is the thing
it's
about
all relationship driven.
Yeah, exactly. The international real estate area, right? That division where you're talking about now. You're not talking about owning property in the States, owning property over there.
Yeah.
There's two main things you're gonna need. Number one is you're gonna need your network.
Yeah.
Without a proper network and proper research that you do, you should not be owning any property in any country, right? Other than here, right? So, but once you get that network set in, and once you get that infrastructure, that foundation of doing it the right way, and doing your research, and okay, where the tourist taxes are, that is the key there, because this is what most people don't understand, and is you buy here in dollar, right? So you're paying dollar inflation prices, and you're gonna make dollar from Airbnb, from whatever you have.
Yeah.
So when you buy in these other countries, you're buying the properties or the lots or whatever at the value of their currency, meaning that it's always going to be less. So a house in Dominican Republic, right, will cost you, a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house will cost you $300,000 or $400,000. Here, it'll cost you 1.2 million.
Yep.
Right? That's number one. So you're buying in that currency. Number two, to fix, rehab, build everything, you are building on the labor base of that currency. Meaning that when you're hiring people to build that house or to rehab that house, you're paying their labor prices.
Yeah.
Right? So what is it in Dominican now?
$400 a month.
$400 a month
for
right?
skilled labor.
So skilled labor is $400 a month. So you're talking about probably anywhere. Do they work 5 days a week or 6 days a week?
Five. Depends, but five for the
so
most
part. So depending on the country, some countries work 6 days a week. Their regular work week is 6 days instead of 5. So they say in Dominican it's 5 days a week. They're making an average of like $10 to $12 a day is what they make compared to $15 to $20 an hour in the States.
And for me, that was hard to reconcile at first, right? Because I want to treat people well too. Like I didn't want to be part of this slave labor kind of deal, right?
Of course not.
And at first, I had a hard time reconciling in my mind, like how the heck can we only pay somebody $400 or $500 a month?
Yeah.
You know, and do it ethically, right? Like with any level of morality.
What I learned was
right?
what you do is you don't pay them that.
Yeah.
Pay them more.
Yeah.
So that they're super happy.
Totally.
That they're getting they're getting paid more than any other person or that team that you have, right? You have a team.
Yep.
That team gets taken care of. Right? You pay them double. Let's say you can even pay them double.
Totally.
And they're gonna work twice as hard.
Yep.
They're gonna work twice as fast. They're gonna do everything that you need them to do, and they're gonna be happy doing it.
And you have loyalty.
And you have loyalty.
And that's the biggest thing. Like so for me, like how it happened, we partnered with a guy, and I think this is the thing is every country's different. We looked at Colombia. You're doing things in Colombia. I'm doing things in the DR. The laws, regulations, and everything in the DR are different than Colombia, right? Like so,
of course,
every
country's
place
different.
You go,
they have their different rules.
And so this is where it gets different. In the United States, it's the most sophisticated, mature, regulated real estate investment market in the world, right? So when you leave this, I'll tell you, me and my wife, because she's super involved with me on this project as well. We have had a lot of anxiety when you go down and you're used to inspections having to be done in a certain way and due diligence to be done in a certain way. And then you go through this process and they're like, that's not how we do things here. And how the hell do you do it? Like if but you realize there's a certain amount of risk, and you just got to reconcile in your mind, like the upside, the downside. Is it worth the downside? Can I handle the downside?
At the end of the day, you're always going to risk.
There's
always a risk factor. Right. And everybody that, the people that I've known that have been making money, in other countries for the last 10 years, there's always a risk factor. Totally. Anything that you do, there's a risk factor here. There's 100%. A risk factor, the risk factor. No, because you could lose the property. Oh, and you can't lose the property here. Totally. You could build a property, get it, and then nobody ever rents it out. Well, nobody ever takes it, and then you're stuck with a property. Then So, yes, there's risk, but I have learned in my decade of doing this, scared money doesn't make money.
That is true.
Scared money doesn't make money. You have to be willing to risk, because if you don't risk, then you're going to be playing safe and you're never going to make the money you need to make to have financial freedom, period.
For sure.
I don't care what anybody says.
And so I guess kind of circling back, what I would say, my overall philosophy, so if there was somebody that were coming and saying, hey, Chris, hey, Tony, I really want to get into the real estate game or whatever, I would say at this point in time, the United States is tough to get involved in. That's why we expanded to the DR.
Well, the first question you would have to ask a person is like, how much liquid cash do you have?
Of course.
That's number one.
And most people don't have that much, right?
Yeah, I was like, all right, so how much money do you have?
Because,
someone who gets into real estate could be a regular person.
Oh, totally.
Or it could be already an entrepreneur 100%. That's already making 7 figures a year.
So let's talk about that, because if you are a regular person, there's a couple options that you have. You could decide, hey, I want to save money and go that route. And I maybe you make $100,000 a year and you're like, I want to save $20,000 a year now for the next 5 years to have a down payment to be able to get into this game or whatever. Okay, cool. Go do that. But maybe you're like, I have some money. I want to save it, but I want to get going faster. There are other things that you can do and invest in yourself and learn skills and try to do like subject to deals, try to do wholesaling, try to do things like that. That's not my passion, I guess. I had no interest in doing wholesaling. My wife did it a little bit at one point in time. different markets, wholesaling makes more sense than others. It's starting to get popular again.
Well, it's just like everything. Listen,
but
every single person is going to have their own.
Yeah.
You know, there might be someone that wants to do the Amazon.
Yeah.
There might be someone that
Yeah.
wants to do, web design or have their own company and graphic design or
Sure.
okay, but at least it's yours.
Yeah.
And you're calling the shots.
Yeah.
And you're doing something that you love.
Yeah.
And this is the issue that the indoctrination of, always working that 9 to 5.
Yeah, totally.
And even if you're working that 9 to 5, why can't you make money doing something else while you're working that 9 to 5? That's why you have the day traders.
Oh my gosh.
You have day traders. Like I have a buddy of mine. He was supposed to be here with us in the stock market Wolf. That this guy has 7 figures a year doing day trading.
Yeah.
And he works literally an hour a day. Right. Obviously, he didn't start there, but
he built that skill. He built
that
the
skill,
process. He's got the whole.
And that's
deal.
it. So everybody's gonna have their own way of making money. My biggest thing I've always told people is I was like, look, do something, number one, that you love to do. Whatever you pick, do something that you like.
Totally.
Right?
100%.
And then make sure whatever it is that you like, that it's gonna bring you financial freedom. Because you may like to be a teacher,
Totally.
right? But unfortunately, you're not going to be financially free being a teacher because you're going to be making $40,000 a year.
Well, you're on the wrong ladder. You're trying to climb to the top of the mountain, but you're taking the long way. Like,
but this is the way that I look. But this is the way that I saw someone's Instagram not too long ago. I was like, all right, well, you like to be a teacher, no big deal. Okay, well, you know what? Why don't you get a school? Get a building, and make it a charter school, and go that route. And then hire teachers, and then you're the principal, and you're the one that likes to teach, and you're the one who has, but now you're in control, right? And
100%.
you're still in that teaching world,
Yeah.
right? Where you're still
Sure.
catering to the kids that you want to cater to and all those type of things.
So I tell this to all the life insurance agents I work with. We could tell it to every teacher in the world. Stop thinking like a teacher. Stop thinking like a life insurance agent. Stop thinking like a personal trainer. Think like an entrepreneur.
Oh, 100%.
And what do entrepreneurs do? They solve people's problems. Figure out what your skill sets are, figure out what your passions are, figure out what your unique abilities are, and then figure out who are you trying to serve and how can you solve their problems. And if you combine all that together, that is where the magic happens. When I was just down in the DR, I met a husband and a wife that came to dinner our last night there, and they were from South Carolina. And they moved down to the DR. They got stuck there during COVID, and they were on a catamaran going around and trying to get some just rejuvenation time with them and their family. They got stuck there during COVID, and they fell in love with it. And then they were like, "We're not going back to the regular world." She was a teacher. He was a business guy. And so they said, "Whoa, there's an opportunity. We love this place. Our life is so much more peaceful." So they thought like an entrepreneur, not a teacher, and they thought, well, there's a lot of expats coming down here. They have kids. They have families. What are they doing for education? Like, I'm dealing with it right now. We're bringing our 3 kids down there.
Yeah.
It's like, holy crap. Like, you got to all of a sudden become a homeschooler?
Yeah,
like, what are you going to do? Because I'm not putting them into public schools down there. So they created
They're not going to be able to speak the language.
They created a whole school system down there, a
Yeah.
privatized school system solving other people's problems.
Other people's problems, yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's and that's how it goes. Like when we're selling life insurance, right, to people, there's a million different ways that life insurance can fit into people's lives that they don't understand. If I just go, "Hey Tony, you need life insurance," you're gonna be like, "Dude, why the hell do I need life insurance? I'm not married. I don't got kids. I don't like that.
nothing.
Why do I care?" It's not a matter of if you need it or not. It's a matter of what do you want? What are you after? My job is to have a conversation with you to figure out your goals and objectives and figure out like how is your money in alignment with your values and your beliefs and your goals and what you're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely.
And if we can reverse engineer our way, I'm thinking like an entrepreneur, thinking about, all right, who's Tony? Where does he want to go? What are his objectives? What are his problems? And does what I have to offer have a potential solution to help you? If now we come at it from that perspective, that's a conversation we're going to have, right?
Absolutely.
Versus me being like, "Hey, Tony, just buy my thing." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
I've always said, like you say, solving other people's problems.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you think like an employee, you're going to be stuck as an employee for the rest of your life.
Totally.
Stop thinking as an employee and start thinking like a boss.
Yep. Totally.
Start thinking like you want to be the owner. the more you think about that,
Yep.
the more solutions that you're going to come up with on how you can get out of being an employee.
Yep.
Because the truth is that 90% of employers, maybe more than that have more than 10 years of experience in any job
Yeah.
can own that company. Can own the company.
Sure.
If they're good at their job or they're great at their job and you've been an employee somewhere for 10 years, I can guarantee you can build a template or you can build a structured foundation on that same exact, let's say that same exact job, right? That same exact, what your boss is doing, right? Mm-hmm. And probably, you know what? Do it better.
Or bro, I've got people that have worked for me and I've given them equity in companies because they killed it. And I was like, it hit the stage where I was like, man, that person is irreplaceable.
100%.
Or if I had to replace them, there is a massive opportunity cost to losing them. So rather than have them leave me and go start their own thing, I'd slice off a piece of the company, give it to them, and now my life is more free because they have equity and ownership and they're bought in even more. So it frees me up to go do my next thing.
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
you know
100%. 100%.
Like, that's what it's all about.
I started working at 14 years old, and I worked at Winn-Dixie, which is a supermarket down here in Florida, right?
Yeah.
There was the only place that would let me work at 14. Everywhere else was 15.
Oh, okay.
So I started working at 14, and I would work 1 or 2 days out of the week at nighttime, and then I would work the weekends. They'd only let you work 25 hours. And I was a bagger. I started off as a bagger. I worked in Winn-Dixie till I was 18 years old. I started at 14. I worked there till I was 18 years old. When I came in, by the time that I had been there for 5 years, when I came in, I didn't have a job until I came in. And they would put me where someone didn't come to work.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
So they would say, I would come in, I would punch in. I remember punching in, bam, 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 and they were like, Tony, they would look at the schedule, and they're like, oh, Tony, you're going to be here. The next day, hey, Tony, you're going to be here.
You were a floater. Yeah. You just kind of, you filled holes.
Because I could fucking do everything.
Yeah.
At 18 years old,
yep,
I could run that entire Winn-Dixie being there 5 years. And I was a kid.
Yep.
But I was a hustler, and I went from bagging, cleaning the toilets, to I could work every single position in that entire supermarket.
Yep.
The meats, the produce, the deli. It didn't matter where you stuck me, I could work it.
And
right?
here's the deal, though. You were looking to solve people's problems. Like, as entrepreneurs, we're trying to solve our clients'
100%,
problems.
yeah.
Your job at that point in time wasn't to solve the client. I mean, yeah, you were solving the client's problems that were coming through the door, but you were solving the problems of the leadership of that organization.
Of course.
Right?
And my thing is I wanted to go in. It was something different for me. So every time if something opened up, I would go and I would learn while I was, working with them.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I don't want to be bagging 5 years.
Totally.
Right? I don't want to be, someone, punching in stuff, So like when I wanted to change, and I liked that. I liked the fact that I had the ability to not know what I was going to do that day, and I was going to go in there, and it was going to be something different. Oh, maybe today was meats, tomorrow was produce, whatever. I was constantly changing, right?
Yeah.
I hate the monotony of coming into work every day doing the same exact thing, right?
I think every entrepreneur is like unemployable at
Yeah,
this point in time.
that's
We can't. We just couldn't go on in and do the same thing every single day.
Mind you, we're talking about in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
So I was getting paid when I left in 1998, in the beginning of 1998. I left making $5.15 an hour.
Big time.
Right? That's what I was making,
time.
right?
Yeah.
And I got into an argument with my manager, and I was like, yo, I want to get paid, because I was even at that point, I was under minimum wage. Yeah. The minimum wage at that time was $6.15 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember telling the guy, I was like, hey, I want you to at least pay me minimum wage.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to pay me. He was like, no, this is your rate, and this is what, whether he wanted to or not, I don't know if he was allowed to or not or whatever, but and then I ended up quitting because I was like,
you knew your value was higher.
Of course, I was like, bro, I can run this place,
and
you're treating me like I'm, because I started there at like $4 and probably like $4 and change is what I started working there,
Sure.
And even when I became a cop, right, in the police academy, it still wasn't unionized. So even as a cop, when I got hired in 2003, 2004, I was getting paid only $8 an hour.
Whoa.
You know what I mean? They only gave me back $8 an hour because actually at the time when I went, I didn't get paid anything.
I made
$1,000 from the Montgomery GI Bill. from the Marine Corps
Okay.
a month. I was making $1,000 a month, and then I was working at the nighttime, security
Yep.
and all that stuff.
Yep.
But the mentality there was always, for me, it was always just like, okay, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
Well, I want to learn how to do this. Let me feel weird, uncomfortable for a little bit. I learned how to do it. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Most people don't want to do that. Most people like feeling comfortable, and they settle, right? And I've never been someone to settle in regards to like, well, I'm scared of doing this, right? So I don't want to do it because I'm fearful, because it's learning something new and I don't know what it is. In the contrary, I was always the type of guy that I was like, bro, I don't know how to do that. Let me just do that. Let me learn it right quick. Let me do it. And I was always application based. So I'm not the type of guy to learn because you're telling me. I learn by doing.
100%.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite quotes or kind of memes or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is a statement basically saying, if it's worth doing poorly until you're good at it.
100%.
Right?
Agree with that.
And I think that mindset has to run through your blood, right? Like, and you have to have this mindset of, there's all sorts of books and cliches and statements is like, go for no, fail forward, like all these things. But at the end of the day, you have to embody and embrace the excitement in failure. You have to
but nobody does that.
Yeah, well,
nobody ever likes to fail.
Nobody
hates
likes to fail,
yeah.
but you have to go into it so. It's what I believe really makes people actually fail, and by failing I mean quit, right? And give up and settle, like you're talking about, settling for the mundane life. What I believe does that is because something unexpected happens to you. And typically that something unexpected is a negative, it's a loss, it's a failure, it's the outside world would perceive it as being you failed. Like the business failed, the investment failed, it was just a crash and burn. And so then you lose your confidence. Maybe your ego is damaged, maybe like whatever it is, right? And you don't rebound.
And you quit.
But what I say, so I'm not saying anybody enjoys failure, because that's just ignorance, right? Like nobody enjoys failure. I've failed dozens of times.
Everybody fails more than they win. So,
and I've failed at some big things that would make most people quit, right? Like probably more than I've been pretty durable right through the years and resilient. My wife always gives me a hard time. She's like, "You're the most stubborn son of a bitch I've ever met in my life."
Well, you know
right?
what though?
Because I just refuse to give up.
Stubborn.
Yeah.
In that sense, I'm the same way, right? So I was talking to this with a friend of mine where I always told him, I was like, bro, your problem is, and the reason why you haven't been able to become successful until later in your life is because every single time that it got hard in whatever endeavor you started, you just stopped.
That's the truth.
And you went right back to the same thing that you know how to doing, the hustle, the things that you shouldn't be doing, right?
Yeah.
And because my buddy wasn't always on the right side of the road, right? He was in the left. So he would try to do right. It gets hard.
And then he
back. Gets hit by a hammer or something, right? And then he goes right back to the other side of the road. And I told him, I was like, the reason why I've been able, I knock on wood, that I've been able to be successful in the last 10 years is because I'm so damn stubborn that when I hit a wall, I'm going to find 15 different ways to either jump it, go around it, or break through it. And that is that is why I've been able to succeed, not because I'm smart,
right?
Because just I continue to move up forward and continue to break through whatever, or I fall down or something happens to me. I just go, all right, well, I got to get myself back up. And then, if I can't get there on two legs, you know what? Then I'm going to freaking cut one of my legs off and I'm going to hobble my way into that endeavor with one leg. It doesn't matter what it was. I think it was just something for me that it was just, okay, quitting in my head, obviously, in all the things that I've been through in my life, right? My background, it's never an option.
Right.
It's never an option. Now, you may deviate, meaning like if you started with this plan and you see that you keep hitting in that plan, well, you know what, let's make another plan, same result, and I want the same result, but let's change the plan a little bit, and let's see if this plan works to go around whatever we need to go around.
But bro, that's life. Like I could pretty much guarantee any business you start, we're sitting in your gym office right now, right?
Yeah.
And so I guarantee you, when you first started this gym, it's taken on a little bit of a different life than it probably was going to take on the moment that you envisioned doing it the first time, right?
Yeah.
And I can tell you that for my businesses, for my agency, for like anything that we do, that's the way it goes. You get married. Do you think your marriage, if you're married for 30 years, is going to be the same marriage the whole time? It's going to change. If you just bail on things, like when shit changes, when things get tough, like you're never going to be successful.
But that's how this generation is. For some reason, when things get a little tough, they're like, they bail or they stop or they try to go the opposite way or they go back to that 9 to 5. And that's the problem. All right, so we can talk about this all day long.
All day
Chris.
long.
Couple things, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what we've learned. You know, in this time that we've talked, Chris, we've learned a ton of stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
I guess the bottom line is you can't quit. If you want to do something, you have to, number one, commit.
Yep.
Okay, you have to make the choice on what you want to do.
100%.
Go in, 100%. Even though you fail or you fall down or you hit a wall or whatever, you continue to move forward. And that's what I've learned in my decade. I'm sure that's what you've learned.
Absolutely.
We've both failed more than we've had successful ventures.
Yes.
We've both lost money.
Yep.
Right. We've both made money.
Yep.
And we've been lucky enough to be successful in our specialties, right? In
totally.
what we do now. It was great talking to you.
Thanks,
do you have
brother.
anything
It's
you want to
amazing being
tell?
here.
You want to tell our YouTube, something, some wisdom, some little word of advice.
Thank you. Yeah, listen, it's hard. Expect it to be harder than you expect it to be, and because I just believe it's the things that we don't expect to happen that derail us. Right? It's those. If you go in thinking it's going to be easier, because we always go in thinking as optimistically, because if you weren't optimistic to start, you wouldn't have started in the first place. So expect the valley and don't give up in the valley, because then you're going to build back up.
Awesome. Where can they find you, Chris?
Yeah, so you can find me at Real Chris Kirkpatrick on Instagram and TikTok, at Life180 on YouTube, and you can always go to life180.com.
All right, guys, I hope you've enjoyed my entrepreneurship series. Make sure you subscribe, comment. If you have anybody, share this with people that you know. Like I said before, if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. Okay? All of his links and everything will be in the description. Guys, make your mind unbreakable and your body unstoppable. Everything in this world, I am a firm believer that it's all mindset. It's all mindset. Your mind is the most important tool that you have. Without a strong mind, you will fail at everything that you do in this world. Okay, guys, on to the next one.